For so many people, unresolved mother and father wounds are the number one reason why they still feel stuck. Stuck in painful emotions, stuck in their healing, stuck in their awakening, stuck in feeling free to be fully themselves, to walk their path with total alignment and clarity. This is because the soul can never truly mature unless we work through our mother and father wounding. And today we're going to take a deep dive into all the ways mother and father wounding might still be impacting you, from the most common to the subtle ones. And we'll get very practical. How can you break free from this? I'm gonna help you by supporting you with a lot of practical steps in today's episode. My name is Lorin Kren and I'm a coach, author and hypnotherapist. I help you to understand masculine and feminine dynamics. Ram Dass has this beautiful saying: if you think you are enlightened, try spending a week with your family. And it sums this topic up in a really powerful way and humorous. But there is so much truth in that, because blood family and the unresolved wounds around it, they go to our very core. It doesn't get more primal than that. And if something goes so deeply to our core, if something is so primal, then it takes usually much more effort to work through it. Because in a way we have to transcend our biology. In a way we have to transcend years of pleasing perhaps our mother or father, shrinking, playing small, diminishing our light, trying to meet their expectations, trying to be finally seen and validated by them. But this loyalty, the loyalty to the blood family, loyalty that is wrapped around guilt and often manipulation, and loyalty that has nothing to do with a conscious, heart-centered choice. And even people who have done deep work on this, they often too have not fully ventured into the depths of working through mother and father wounding. They often still harbor great resentment, anger, frustration with their parents, whether they're alive or have already passed away. And this is not because they're doing anything wrong. It's because to truly see things for what they are, to truly let go of no longer needing things to be a certain way, trying for them to be a certain way, no longer harboring this resentment or anger or frustration or disappointment, to truly let go of that, that's the deepest work, some of the deepest and hardest work we can ever do. And as painful and as challenging as it is, at the same time, it is the kind of work that allows our soul to evolve. It allows our soul to mature in ways it might have not yet experienced. Because look at it from this perspective. I like to say the soul cannot mature fully without releasing the mother and father. And by releasing, I don't mean getting rid of. I mean letting go of needing it to be a certain way. Letting go of wanting it to be different. Letting go of the internalized voices of unworthiness and conditional love you might have internalized growing up. Many spiritual seekers believe they are detached, but often they're still playing out subtle and unconscious, unresolved mother and father wounding. So let's get really practical. Let's talk about the exact things, from the common to the subtle, that we need to work on, and exactly what you can do to break free, step by step. Step number 1 is watch out for any negative emotions you might still be harboring toward your mother and father, whether they're alive or have already passed away. There is nothing wrong with it, but you might be drinking the poison from the past again and again. And the mind tends to get stuck in that because it says, they did this to me, they did that to me. And if they could only see me, if they could only take responsibility, maybe I can show up differently and then something will change. But you see, we're still drinking that same poison, that same pain. We're still playing that same role that we have played, perhaps growing up. We're still trying for it to be a certain way. There is this energy of desperation and frustration behind it. And this has nothing to do with detachment or healthy detachment. As long as we're still harboring these negative emotions, as long as there is still this intensity behind it, we're still falling into the little girl or little boy, rather than being our higher self, rather than being the mature soul that we are now. Whether you feel rage or a cold distance, a kind of fuck you energy towards your mother or father, or strong sadness, clearly your primal ties to your mother and father are still causing emotional pain inside you. They're pulling you into an unconscious state, and this is the key. If your mother and father and the dynamics can still pull you into an unconscious state, where you don't feel aligned, where you feel disconnected from yourself, where you feel angry, frustrated, desperate, disappointed, then they still hold power over you. And you might say, well, that's normal, and I'm not saying it isn't. But I'm saying, if you are like me, which most likely you are, and you want to embody and expand into the highest version of yourself, then you have to look at this. You have to look at everything where you're still giving your power away. If they have the power to make you unconscious, then they still hold power over you. And your soul cannot fully mature. The little boy or girl is still there, who was abandoned, loved conditionally, unmet and unseen, had to shrink, bend, accommodate, or believed something was wrong with her or him. And this has a very strong energetic impact on your life. Because if your energy, if your consciousness is still, if your soul is still wrapped up in this unresolved wounding, which again, give yourself grace, this takes years and it's continuous work. And it's not about getting to this perfect stage of being healed, but it's getting to this place where you are no longer pulled into a very unconscious state. You can just accept things for how they are. You can set boundaries. You can be fully yourself. And at least it no longer has such an impact on you that you go back into the little boy and girl and lose yourself. We're not talking about perfectly enlightened and everything is only healed and perfect. We're talking about reaching a certain level and state in your evolution. One most people have never touched. Not because they're weak, not because they're not enlightened enough, but because this is the real hard shit, the real hard work to do. Also, it leads to your nervous system being dysregulated. When you're still wrapped up energetically in that, your nervous system keeps being dysregulated by that, which is having a detrimental effect in your life. It's not allowing your true presence, your grounded presence, your power, your authentic power to fully shine through. So I invite you to pause for a moment and jot down or reflect. What negative emotions are you still harboring? What is still pulling you into an unconscious state? And do these emotions have any real significant purpose in your life? We like to justify these emotions. They have hurt me, they have done this, and I respect that. In fact, I see you. I understand you're in your right to be sad, to be disappointed, to be angry. And there needs to be space to allow yourself to feel the fullness of these emotions. But it's when you get stuck in them. That's when you're not doing anyone a favor, least yourself. Because now, the pain you have experienced in the past is literally the pain or the building blocks of what you're creating your future, your current presence with. They're going to seep into your relationship, your intimate life specifically, but everywhere ultimately. And that's not doing yourself a favor. That's not honoring your true heart and soul in this life. Once you become aware of what negative emotions you have and specifically how you might still be unconsciously justifying your anger, justifying your frustration, justifying your disappointment, you start to understand that you can drop that Or you can start the journey of dropping that. How would you show up differently? How would you feel differently by no longer feeding this energy? You will become more fully yourself. You will become more grounded. You become more present, and your light will be able to shine through you much more effortlessly. Step number 2 is to look at what voice and programming have you internalized. Whether your parents have passed away or are still alive, we so often internalize the voice of our angry father, our mother who loved us only conditionally, or the parent who said that we're not enough, or the many other ways in how it was communicated, and we interpret it this way. That voice is most likely alive somewhere in your subconscious, and it's impacting you. So some of the deepest work you can do is to find that little voice, is to spot that part inside you that, for instance, gaslights you like your father or mother gaslit you. Gaslighting is when someone makes you doubt your own perception and memory, where you go into a state of deeply questioning yourself. It creates almost a fracture spiritually because you have no longer trust in yourself, and you now place trust in someone else so they can control you, and the idea behind it is control. You see, this is a good example, gaslighting, because it's a very intense example. When a mother or father gaslights the child, oh, that wasn't a big deal, that didn't really happen, you can't remember it correctly. It becomes internalized, and it continues in your life, how you question yourself. And then there are all the unconscious programming that are passed down from our mother and father about their unworthiness, their generational trauma, and their pain. And with that unconscious programming, think about it for a moment, we try so hard to not be like our parents in certain ways, and yet often we notice we display the same patterns in our adult life. The same programming and conditioning we've pushed away, we then somewhere took on and started to express, perhaps in different or more subtle ways as well. So one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself, an honest introspection: what patterns are you displaying of your mother or father? What generational trauma, what disconnect, what pain are you carrying that is not yours? So much of what we carry is not ours, and all we have to do is give ourselves permission to drop it. And it doesn't necessarily happen overnight, but just by giving ourselves permission, recognizing it as not being our pain and burden to carry, we then start to feel lighter. And in that process, we're already healing and already expanding. Talking about burdens, sometimes the way this happens is that you now feel responsible for your mother or father. Maybe because that's how they made you feel, because they projected their emotional challenges onto you, and you could no longer be a child, but you took the role as parent. And now you feel responsible, but that intrinsically is something you're carrying that is not yours to carry. And when you drop these things, you break free. And in fact, it is also the only way to look at your parents in a compassionate way, to love them for who they are, because you have accepted reality and you have stepped into your true power. And from that place, you can see things clearly. And only when you see things clearly can you actually love clearly. Otherwise, everything is mixed up and wrapped up with guilt, unconscious, unspoken loyalty to the blood family. And it isn't really love or compassion. It's more playing a role, an unconscious role that very often makes you unconscious and drains your life force, that drains your soul. So once you notice these patterns and whatever you're carrying, or how you are showing up in a way as they showed up, whether you're carrying something that is not yours to carry, or you're showing up in a wounded and unconscious way as your father or mother did, and you are now modeling this because has been ingrained in your subconscious. Some of the most powerful steps you can take is to protect others from this. Because if you can start to protect others from this, then it means you have reached a level of healing where everything starts to shift in your life. We often don't see life as it is or relationships as they are. We interpret life through our wounds, and specifically our mother and father wounds. We respond with reactivity and we project this onto others. If we feel we could never fully trust our parents, we will project that distrust onto our intimate partner. If we felt not good enough for who we are, we will either say unconsciously yes to people who don't choose us fully, or even in a relationship where we are truly loved for who we are, subconsciously sabotage and reaffirm and create a reality where we feel unworthy and not loved for who we truly are. And that is what you most importantly need to become aware of. How are you still projecting this onto others? Because when you stop the projections, you stop the pain of the past from defining your present, from defining your future. You step out of that inner hurt little boy and girl, and you step into your higher self, into the powerful soul that you truly are. So once you start dropping the negative emotions, you start to accept things as they are. You are at peace with not being seen, not being validated, for your expectations not being met. Once you start to stop projecting on others and dropping and releasing the pain that is not yours to carry, your presence, your energy starts to have a totally different quality. People can feel a shift in your energy because you're more free, you're more expansive, you are more yourself because your soul is free now. Otherwise the soul stays wrapped up and stuck in these dynamics. And now your soul is free, or much more free at least. As long as we breathe, we've got healing work to do. And people can feel that in your energy, that level of freedom, that level of peace, that level of reclaiming of who you are, that level of embodiment. People can sense it. It makes you more magnetic. It allows people to feel more safe and secure in your presence. It activates people in a good way, in an empowering way, which leads us to step number 3, which is the hardest and most important. The ultimate step for those whose parents are still alive, and then switching over to where one or both parents might have already passed away. Assume that they will never fully see you, understand you, respect you. Absolutely never. If you knew this is 100% true, how would you show up differently? Would you still be prioritizing them energetically? Answer every message with frenzy? Jump at every demand? Play out the constant cycle of trying, being disappointed, being sad, being angry, being frustrated, feeling bad about not being seen all the time? The truth is, if you would only show up 1% differently, that is your work. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but as long as you don't face the reality that this is what might happen, that you're never fully seen, never fully respected, and never fully loved for who you are, you cannot break free. And the crazy paradox is that when you choose to accept and see that reality fully, then it means you see yourself fully. Because seeing reality fully for what it is means seeing yourself. There's a sweet and divine paradox in this. How would you show up differently if you knew things will never change? You would have more acceptance. You would have more freedom. You'd be more at peace. You wouldn't constantly be pulled into an unconscious state, wanting things to be different than they are. Now, for those whose parents have already passed away, what unnecessary pain are you still carrying? Because there is an inevitable pain of life when we lose those we love. And I'm not saying that you need to get rid of that, because the truth is there is a deep sense of fragility and inevitable pain and suffering that we all experience, or pain. And there is a suffering where we get stuck in that pain. So allow the grief to move through you. Let it crack your heart open, because this is what grief does. Grief is the chisel and your soul is the sculpture. But how are you unnecessarily suffering here? How are you still holding on to a negative story of they never saw me, they messed me up, they traumatized me? Who would you be if you dropped that story? And instead turn that pain and trauma into your highest expansion, into your fuel, into your vehicle to open your heart deeper than ever before, to awaken and become more fully yourself than ever before. Which leaves us with the ultimate question for today. How can you turn your greatest suffering into a force of light, into a force for good? How can you turn into something where you love deeper, care deeper, and become even more compassionate, while of course holding clear, energetic boundaries and protecting your heart fiercely from what is not in alignment and where you are not seen? This is not about getting rid of your parents. This is not about talking bad about your parents and judging them. This is about allowing your soul to evolve and to break free from the internalized voice, the pain that is not yours to carry, the unconscious loyalty, guilt, and responsibility you feel that you don't need to carry. This is about finally fully claiming who you truly are. No longer allowing your energy, your spirit and consciousness to be wrapped up in the little boy and little girl that was hurt, but instead to say, I honor the pain. I allow the pain to flow through me. I embrace every emotion. If you cry, you cry. If it takes years, it takes years. You honor all that arises. And at the same time, you don't allow yourself to get stuck there. You turn it into your highest expansion. And when you do this, everything in your life starts to change. It impacts every area of your life. Your relationships become more fulfilling. You draw more abundance into your life because you are now your higher self, rather than a soul wrapped up in unresolved dynamics and wounding. The deeper fulfillment and depth and love you long for is on the other side of facing everything that still needs to be faced, where you're experiencing suffering, pain, or dysregulation because of your mother or father. Choose this fully every single day. Face all that needs to be faced. Welcome all emotions that arise, and you expand and evolve at the highest level. Thank you for listening to this episode. I am truly grateful to be of service. For us to continue to support you at the highest level, it would mean the world to me if I can have a few seconds of your time. If you can leave this show 5 stars or a thumbs up wherever you are listening or watching, that goes a long way and will just take a few seconds of your time. Of course, only if that is how you truly feel about it. Or 30 to 60 seconds of your time of writing a short review or comment about what you have gained or how it makes you feel, what you have learned, whatever it is you want to share, 1, 2, 3 sentences, that goes even further. And sharing it on social media or sharing this or any other episode with someone who you think can benefit from. These are all ways how you can support us, for us to continue to support you at the highest level. If you want to benefit from other free offerings of mine, I've got a free newsletter that I send out every Friday with deep value, where I share personal stories from my own life, things that don't make it into the other social media channels, where I cannot go as deep as in the newsletter. So you're not subscribed to that yet, I invite you to subscribe to it. You can find it at lorinkren.com/newsletter. I also have other free ebooks under lorinkren.com/books. It's truly an honor to have you here and to be of service.